Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Fika Brunch Business Podcast. I'm your host, Tia, and you will notice that I have no co-host with me today. You'll also notice that we're in my bedroom, which feels a bit intimate, but we're not going to go there. We're just going to ignore the background and pretend that we've got a Fika logo behind us. But the reason I don't have my co-host with me today is because he is in London. And I am in Stamford, and we just haven't really been able to coordinate our schedules / get the microphones to work when we have coordinated our schedules. So we thought that's fine, we'll just do 2 separate episodes. We, as you guys probably know by now, are quite different. So we have very different ways of thinking about stuff and different topics of conversation as well that we're interested in. There is a lot of overlap and a lot of similar topics of conversation and areas that we both like to cover, but there will also be lots of areas that are specific to us. So I thought that this would be a good opportunity to talk about one of them. My setup is not quite as official as Evo's. Anyone else get a bit Godfather vibes from that, but I'm sat on my bedroom floor with a chamomile tea, again not quite as official as his. What did he have, a whiskey cold brew or something like that? But we're just going to roll with it. So I wanted to talk about creativity and specifically like how to get your creativity back, what to do if you feel like you are a creative person, but it's not really coming out of you, or are struggling with creative ideas, or don't really feel like you can express your creativity that well and don't really feel like it's fully coming out. And yeah, I guess just some tips and things that I've used and have found helpful. And yeah, so as many again of you will know, anyone who's listened to the podcast for a while, you will know, or anyone that knows Evo and I personally, you'll know that Evo does the kind of financial operation side of our business and everything we do together. And I am much more the creative and brand and content side of things. So we have very different strengths. And to be honest, I never really saw myself as a creative. I'm still not sure that I do, but I don't know how much of that is like a bit of imposter syndrome and then how much of it. But I think we all have a level of creativity in us. Some people are just more creative than they are kind of strategic, and other people are more strategic and like logical than they are creative. Also, you can be strategic and logical and really creative at the same time. Like, everyone has their own strengths, and there's so many different like traits you can have that it can all kind of tie in. I also think we all have a capability to be quite creative. It just kind of, I think you have to like tap into it, and just in the same way as we can all probably be strategic to some level and be good, really organized, you just kind of have to tap into it. And it's like a skill to an extent in that you can hone it and you can practice it and you can train it. But I do think some people have like a more natural predisposition to being creative, and some people have a more natural predisposition towards being like more strategic and logical about things. So yeah, so I'm kind of the creative in everything that we do, and that works really well for us. And it is also something that we have both really, as of late, as you'll know from our annual business argument, we've really tried to tap into our strengths and to try and minimize how much work we need to do that involves our weaknesses. So anything to do with like operations and finance and spreadsheets, I avoid like the plague now. I absolutely do not get involved in unless I really have to. Like, it's completely unavoidable when it's your own business, and when there are always things that you kind of need to review. But wherever I can, I don't do it. Evo does it. And likewise, anything to do with like social media, creativity, branding, Evo doesn't really get involved in. And we kind of let each other have the final say in our own domains. So anything creative, if he's like, oh, I don't really like that, but if you like it, we'll go with it. Like, he lets me have the final say in domains that he knows are like my stronger point, and he won't try and influence it too much, and then vice versa. So anything like finance, I'll like, just the other day we were having a conversation about some stuff, and I had some concerns about a couple of things, and we just sat and had a conversation about it, and I kind of said, like, if you're 100% like confident and you know exactly what's going on, and he knows a lot more than I do, then I fully trust his decision on things like that. So so with creativity, I think there can I think this can be the case with everything. You always reach a point where you're never at 100%, but sometimes, and some weeks and some days and some months even, you could be operating at, like, you could be feeling super creative, you could be at 90% and just constantly feel like you've got amazing new ideas and amazing new visions and so much going on in your head that you're kind of ready to action, and so many creative ideas coming out. And then there might be like weeks, months, sometimes even years for some people, I'm sure, where you're in a kind of creative rut. And I do think it can be quite disheartening. I would say that I have experienced it. I have only really recently just got out of what I would call a creative rut. I think it's very normal, and I think it's like with anything in life. There are points where you're really motivated to go to the gym and eat really healthy and everything like that, and then there's points where you're not, or where like life just gets in the way. And I found, for me personally, that my creative ruts happen when life does get in the way, and when I'm super busy, and it's kind of like everything just turns into more of a firefighting operation rather than rather than working on things and trying to think of new things and giving myself like the space and time to be creative. When it's just firefighting and you're just going from like one job to another, to-do lists, and making sure that everyone's looked after and everyone's happy and all the cafes are fine and all the operations are going smoothly, and all the teams are gelling well and everything like that. I think it takes your focus away from the creative stuff, and because it makes you quite tunnel visioned on the day to day. So yeah, I've found myself in a bit of a creative rut over the last few months. I think the biggest indicator of this would be that when Eva and I decided we were going to do something in London, we really, and I guess this kind of mainly falls on my shoulders, really struggled to come up with a name. We thought we had a name, and we had it for quite a few years, but we realised that wasn't really the right name for the brand. It didn't really fit, and there was too much. There was quite a lot of connotation and links to that name, so we scrapped that name, and I couldn't for the life of me think of something that would be a good name for what we're doing, and nothing resonated with me. And I spoke to a few people, and there was just nothing came up that I thought, yeah, that's the one. So that was like the biggest indicator of me, to me, really, that I was in a bit of a creative rut. I also just found myself doing quite monotonous things. So and you'll know this, I'm such a creature of routine. I love a routine, but there's a different a routine that's conducive to creativity and to coming up with new ideas, and a monotonous routine. And I think you kind of have to have a bit of a balance of the two, because life is sometimes monotonous, and some of the tasks that you need to get done are sometimes monotonous. It's not always going to be super fun and super exciting and super fast paced. Like, sometimes it is about going to bed at 10 p.m. and waking up at 6 a.m. and like doing the same stuff at the same time every day and having the same meals and just kind of operating in a bit of a monotonous way. And sometimes it is a lot more exciting, and it is a lot more fast paced, and it does throw your routine out of whack. But I think I was stuck in like a bit of a monotonous routine for a few months, and then I went too far the other way, where I had zero routine and everything was just like thrown up in the air, and there was so much going on. And I also was just guilty of not filling my own cup up before trying to do everyone else's. So then I I was just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So I now feel like I've come out of this creative rut, and we have a name for our new project, which is, we have announced already on a previous podcast, but it's called Junie. And I love it, and I feel so connected to it, and so it really resonates with me, which I think when you just know, you know, and that's what I was really struggling to find. But I'm going to kind of talk through some of the things that I think helped me get out of that creative rut, and helped me kind of come back to it. And now I feel like every day I really feel in my flow this week, and I really feel like I have a really clear vision, and I'm really excited for upcoming projects, and I just feel like I'm back on it, and I'm really excited to get creative again and use my creativity for the business. So I've written them down. I'm not just being super antisocial. So the biggest thing I think is time. I think with a lot of ruts and a lot of situations sometimes we can find ourselves in, you just need to give it time. Like I said, we're not always going to be operating at 100% capacity. You're not going to be full of energy and full of creativity 100% of the time. That's just not realistic to achieve. And also, I think if we expect that of ourselves, we're just going to end up being disappointed. So yeah, I think time is a really, really big one. And I think taking the pressure off, and just taking that off and allowing yourself the time to enjoy other parts of life and other parts of your work, and to get on with, even if they're not the most enjoyable parts, but to get on with other parts of your work, and just accepting that it's not always going to be at 100%. So when you're feeling really creative, and when you're feeling super, like you have loads of ideas and the creativity's flowing, my advice would be run with it and take it as far as you can take it. And then when the time comes that you're not feeling like that, that's fine. Just step back, give yourself the time to not be super creative, and focus, channel your energy and efforts into something else. And you'll just find that naturally it ebbs and flows, and with time, the creativity will come back. The other thing I think that has been really, really instrumental to my creativity coming back and feeling like I am kind of back in the creative space is changing my environment. So like I said, I think everything just felt like it got a little bit monotonous at one point. I'm just going to take a sip of tea, guys. Cheers. Delicious. Everything just felt like it got a bit monotonous. I think we can get stuck in this, just being in the same town, in the same circle, seeing the same people every day, going to the same places, surrounding ourselves with the same groups and everything like that. And everything just gets quite samey, being in the same house. Like most of us just stay in one place. We sleep in the same bed, we eat at the same table, we watch TV from the same sofa. So I think changing your environment can be really, really beneficial, for not even just for your creativity. Obviously, that's what we're talking about now, but just for everything, for your mindset, and for like a bit of excitement in life. Changing your environment. So I went to Norfolk for a few days on my own a couple of months ago. And it was amazing because I felt like I needed a bit of silence and peace and quiet to myself. But also it was so nice to be in a different environment and sleep in a different room and eat in different places and different meals than what I would cook for myself, or what I'd have at Fika. I say cook for myself, I don't cook for myself, or what I would have at Fika. And also be out in nature. And then I also went to Greece last week, and that was again amazing because it was just a complete change of scenery, being around different groups of people, seeing different people every day, going to different places every day, being in nature again, and being on the beach and breathing fresh air. I think changing your environment and just being kind of putting yourself not really out of your comfort zone, because it doesn't have to be anything extreme, but just changing up the routine, changing up what you're surrounded with on a day-to-day basis for a few days can really like reset your mind and make you think a bit differently. And I also, this is personal, this wouldn't work for everyone, but I always journal it out as well. So I will bring my journal and I'll try and like really stay in touch with how I'm feeling and how being in a different environment is making me feel, and yeah, just acknowledging all of that. So that kind of leads me onto like another point, which like it does link into that. I think technology is a real like dampener of creativity. I think we are all so guilty of we just scroll for hours and hours and hours and hours, and I'm sure if most of us look at our screen time, we're embarrassed, because I mean, I know some weeks mine is just really, really embarrassing, and I would not want anyone else to see that. But it's so easy to do. It's an addiction, to be honest, and they've, you know, the tech companies have made it so that we do become addicted, and the scrolling and the constant stimulation and mental stimulation and seeing new things becomes addictive. But we've got so used to not just sitting and being bored that we constantly have to be doing something. So if you're on a train in public, like most of us will just sit there and scroll through Instagram, or, you know, do something on our phone. Even like listening to music and podcasts, although that's great, and I'm not saying like I don't do these things or you shouldn't do these things. It's just like there constantly has to be stimulation nowadays to our minds, and actually that's not how we're really meant to live. Like, we're supposed to get bored. I think some of the best ideas come out of boredom, because you have time to sit and reflect and sit with your thoughts, and like new ideas come up. If you're constantly filling your mind and filling gaps and filling time with pointless scrolling and with kind of meaningless stimulation, I just, that to me doesn't, you're never going to be in your highest creative state if you're constantly numbing your mind and constantly like doing like short dopamine hits and small dopamine hits. I think you need to, I think, yeah, we as humans, to bring our creativity back, we just need to step away from technology a little bit. And in points where I have found that I'm struggling with my creativity, I've really tried to limit my screen time and especially apps like Instagram and TikTok and, you know, Facebook to an extent, although who uses Facebook anymore? But all those apps are just designed for scrolling and addictive, constant scrolling. So I'm really mindful when I find myself being in a creative rut. I just try and really limit my time on them. And instead, I'll replace it with a walk in nature, and it does wonders. So I went through a phase, again, I've fallen out of the habit of a little bit of this, and my time has been much more limited recently, but I went through a phase for a couple of months where I would just go on like an hour walk at least once, most days twice a day. And I would, just go walk around. There's a really nice park near ours, and I loved it. And I do think that really helped me. And just that time, like forcing yourself, like I wouldn't even take my phone so that I didn't listen to music or podcasts, or if I did, I would just make sure that I don't go on it. I would just put a podcast on or some music, you know, listen to something that makes me either feel really good, or a podcast that's like really educational, or something that just makes me laugh. And that really helped me. It really helped me like get out of the constant, like I said, small dopamine hits, and the constant need to be doing something and constant need to be scrolling or on your phone, and put me more in like how we're actually supposed to live as humans. And I've also started really challenging myself, and I would say I'm pretty good at this now. When I'm in public or when I'm walking somewhere, I try and not go on my phone at all. And I've noticed since doing this, like when I'm on the tube in London, you look around and everyone is just like this, and it's quite sad. Like it feels like we're a generation of zombies that are just constantly like this. Like it's a complete addiction. You know, if someone was doing drugs in the corner, you wouldn't just ignore it, and you know, it would make you feel quite uncomfortable. But we're all like this, which is, it's a very addictive trait and habit that we all have. So I challenge you, next time you're walking somewhere or next time you're on the train or the tube, just don't go on your phone. Like, just stick some headphones in, put some music on if you can't, if you can't face sitting there in silence, which is also fine. And then just put your phone away and just people watch, get yourself a coffee from somewhere, go walk around, and actually you'll notice that you notice so many more things. So again, when I started doing this and I started doing my hour-long walks every day, I noticed that I was just like, I would walk past buildings and be like, has that always been there? And has that always looked like that? And has that always had a thatched roof? And has that always been made of that stone? And oh my gosh, I've never realised how beautiful that building is. And all of that stuff builds creativity and builds, like subconsciously it builds your inspiration, and your brain kind of files it away. But it's stuff that you wouldn't notice if you're just walking around on your phone. So I challenge you, try it. It's quite uncomfortable at first and not that fun, but after a bit you quite learn to you quite enjoy and learn to sit with your thoughts and just allow yourself to be bored. I think we need to be bored more because good thoughts come out of being bored. So second to last point is, I think surrounding yourself with the right kind of people is really conducive to creativity. You want to be around people who kind of are energy givers rather than energy sappers. So what I mean by this is, like, surround yourself with people that you can talk to, and talk to about creative stuff. They don't have to be creative themselves, but being around people who listen and you can kind of bounce ideas off is really useful. And this can even be something like, it doesn't have to be your friends or your family. It can even be something like, go to like an art exhibition on your own, or there's so many free talks and stuff that happen. Find a big town or city near you and find some events that are going on and just go. And even if you just go and don't say anything, just listen. Surrounding yourself with creative people and people with visions and ideas will naturally bring it out in you, and talking about it with them, if you can do that, is you'll automatically start to get some ideas back. So again, if you listen to the last podcast, you'll know that the name Junie came from conversations that I had with my friends on holiday. And if I hadn't surrounded myself with those people, and I mean, this is like ties in all the points together, the time, changing the environment, surrounding myself with the right people, not being on my phone, and having the conversations is what all helped. And then my last point is, this kind of goes against what I just said about technology, but bear with me. I think Pinterest is the best social media app out there, and we should all spend more time scrolling. If you're going to scroll on Pinterest, because Pinterest is great. There's so many good ideas. Like, there's everything on Pinterest that you actually would struggle to find on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. So use Pinterest to your advantage. Just if you're in the mood to scroll, sometimes we are, and if you're going to lie in bed at night before you go to bed, wouldn't recommend, pick up a book instead. But if you're going to do it, just scroll on Pinterest, and actually it's just as addictive but inspires a bit more creativity than other apps. And I'm not saying that other apps are bad, because they're not, and I am just as guilty as anyone else. But I do think Pinterest is the way forward if you want to get inspired creatively and get some new ideas, and just make like a mood board. A mood board always helps. And then I find when I start a mood board that then I'll kind of subconsciously look for those things when I'm walking around or when I'm somewhere. I'll be like, oh, that would look good on that mood board, or like, oh, that really ties in with that mood board, and I'll take a picture of it and upload it and put it onto the Pinterest board. And then, like, without you even thinking about it, your creativity is flowing a bit more and the juices are going, and it all adds up. So that is all my tips on how to get your creativity back and how to get out of a creative rut, and or if you don't think you're a creative person, how to harness is that the right word? Hone. We'll go with that. How to hone your creativity a bit more, and how to kind of let it come out, and some tips and tricks you can use for that. For now, I'm going to go and enjoy my chamomile tea before it gets too cold. And I hope you've enjoyed this solo episode from me. And I hope you're looking forward to Evo's solo episode. And next week, we will be back with a proper episode. Us two, hopefully in the new podcast studio. If not, it will be in one of the cafes. And we'll see you then. Bye.